Hi, everybody, and welcome to Coffin Talk Interviews with the Living, a weekly podcast that explores how our views on death affect the way we live our life. And this week, our guest is coming from Jerusalem, which is located in Israel, in case you've been living in a cave for the last, I don't know, however many years you've been alive. But he's a wonderful man, and I'm really excited to ask him questions about philosophy and his life and everything else that's been going on. His name is Daniel Bookman, and as I said, he's currently in Israel, but he's led a pretty interesting life. He was born in Glasgow, Scotland. He was educated in the United Kingdom, and then he moved back to Israel. He's been a lawyer, a computer programmer. He's married. He's had a litter of children. I think it's 7, and
Yeah.
I'm
Thank God.
excited to
Yeah,
ask you about all of that. So, Daniel, welcome to
yeah,
the
yeah.
show. How are you doing today?
Thank you very much. Great. Thank you very much, Mike, for having me here. Yeah, I mean, we're living in war times at the moment, as I mentioned, but basically everything is fairly normal. We say, thank God, Baruch Hashem. We say in Hebrew every day, like we're happy to be here, to be alive, and to be talking to you, and hopefully for good purposes. I hope I'll make my interview with you worthwhile for everyone.
Well, I'm sure it already is because you just brought up some fascinating things that most Americans, if not all Americans, have never dealt with because America has
Yeah,
never had a invasion or a home war. I mean, I guess you could say
yeah, yeah, yeah.
9/11 if you want to quibble, but for the
Right.
most
Yeah,
part,
yeah, yeah.
we are
Yeah.
a species of humans that tends to
Yeah,
talk a lot about war and tends to
right.
wage wars, but we are
Yeah,
always feeling
yeah, you
safe
have
and secure here. So.
peace at home. Yeah, we also feel fairly secure. We feel God is looking after us. We feel we're doing the right thing, and we're fairly familiar with war.
Yeah,
Unfortunately,
that
yeah,
is kind of my first question I want to ask you, but real quick because I forgot to ask it.
sure.
How old are you? And we already kind of talked about it, but would you say you grew up in Scotland?
I grew up in Scotland. I'm 59.
Okay.
I grew up in Scotland till I was 12. I went to the Jewish school there. After I was 12, like we matriculate, you go to secondary school, it's called,
Mm.
and then there was no Jewish schools. So my parents did something which was considered extremely innovative. Most of my friends went to the non-Jewish schools. My parents found out about a school in Manchester, a very good school, Manchester, England, which gave a good standard of religious studies and a good standard of academic studies, which is important for them. So they sent me there. I was the first one. I was like the guinea pig, and after me followed a few people, my 2 brothers, and other people from the community who wanted that. That was from 12 till about 18. And after that, I came to Israel for a couple of years to study in rabbinical college. I then went back to England to study law at university. I then got married, came to Israel back, studied again in like rabbinical college for married young men for about 6 or 7 years. Then my father-in-law, sort of, who's himself, he's a great, happens to be a scholar of Jewish works. He's also was a top-notch tax lawyer in London. He told me you got to do something. He thought it was best for me, so I qualified as a lawyer in England, in Israel. I retrained sort of with the language and the qualifications. Became a lawyer. Then after a few years, I didn't like it. I went into high tech, as you mentioned. Then I came back to law after about 3 or 4 years. Since then, I've been practicing law in Jerusalem, and I spend quite a bit of time trying to studying the holy books. That's considered a primary religious privilege and obligation. So that's how I try to, and worrying about the world and life and everything else, and
Yeah.
managing all these kids, etc.
Well, that's a lot to
And of
unpack.
late,
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
doing some illustrious podcasts like this one.
Actually, maybe I'll start there. Why are you doing podcasts? What's your goal with
That's
that?
a very good question because in my community it's not that accepted, and as I mentioned, it might raise a few eyebrows. And I'm not looking to innovate. I'm not looking to expand the horizons of what's accepted in our fairly insular community. They don't approve so much even of the media, even of internet in general. I have access because of my work, but the main 2 reasons are I hope it will be of value. First one is I wrote 2 books. One is about religion from a rational perspective. I try to because there's a lot of misconceptions and views on religion that it's perhaps outmoded, outdated, not relevant, not rational. um, and that can cause bad press and even animosity towards the religion. In Israel, particularly, there's a lot of tension between religious and non-religious. So one of the reasons one of my works in the background has been to try and make a rational presentation. That's been my focus often in my studies is to rationalize things, explain them. That's the first. The second is more pressing, I think. It's in the last 2 years since there was a terror attack 2 years ago on the 7th of October, which really has resulted has become the focus of geopolitics, really, on the world geopolitics almost since then. All the events have been happening.
Mhm.
And that's led to quite a rise in anti-Semitism throughout the world. So out of concern of that, I started to research, to try to think and research. The result of all that, to make a long story short, was I wrote a book, which was basically became a response to anti-Semitism, but it became quite broad. It became a thesis on society, democracy, geopolitics, and all tied into fair. I detected. I would argue I detected various themes that seem to be common to a lot of these phenomena that we find. The conflict within division within society and democratic society in Israel, in America, in Europe, in a lot of democracies, geopolitics, anti-Semitism, and anti-Zionism, and that was and therefore I put the book out, and I felt that maybe it might be of value if I would also go out and speak a little bit about it, try and speak about it, try and offer explanations. People from a perspective, there's a lot of slogans going around and people are quick to make judgments. So I'm trying to inspire thinking, critical thinking, deep thinking, rational thinking. In the end, whatever conclusion you arrive at, I can't influence, I can't control that, but I
Well,
can, if it comes from a place of, yeah.
let me ask you a question that always comes to my mind, not just with you, with any guest, which is, how would you explain the difference between rationalization and confirmation bias?
Uh, I don't know. It's a good question. Rationalizing is one attempts to say something that is objectively rational.
Okay, cool.
Confirmation bias, you mean, is just confirming what you already believe, perhaps. So I don't know if it's
No,
possible to remove
that makes sense. No,
rational
exactly,
bias.
and that's part of
What
my.
I my
Yeah,
my
please.
benchmark for that is
Yeah,
it something
that's
that's
exactly what I want. Yeah.
intuitively is it something that's intuitively understood? If it's intuitively
Uh-huh.
understood, that suggests that it's more rational, basically rational, objectively
Yeah,
rational.
yeah, I like that a lot. I ask because I am always conflicted with this because I do essays, I do nonfiction, I do so many things, and I do these
Right.
podcasts, and I know that I'm trying to rationalize humanism, treating people
Right.
kindly, allowing
Right.
people to have differences, religions, ethnotypes, ethnicities, language, everything. Like all these, there's only two ways to get rid of the anger about division, which is get rid of divisions, which sounds preposterously impossible, or to
Right.
somehow create a relativistic tolerance for each other. And so when I look at the Middle East and when I look at Israel and when I look at Zionism, and I'm leaving anti-Semitism out of it because I have a separate question about that. Oh, I should mention, family-wise, I am Jewish. My father is Jewish.
Oh,
My last name
that's
is
cool.
Oppenheim. I was raised Jewish
Ah,
in California, of all places. So, so
your father
I
or your mother? You said your
my
mother or your
mother
father?
converted before I was born. So she
Ah,
is,
cool.
yeah,
Right. Yeah. So you're a fully
uh,
fledged Jew. Oh,
yeah.
okay. Welcome.
And
Right. Right.
I mention this because I'm asking casually a lot of questions about Judaism, but so you know my
Right.
heart and where I'm coming from.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. You
Um,
can answer whatever
but
from
I'm
whatever
also
perspective.
coming from the perspective of being a recipient of anti-Semitism because of the actions of people I've never met nor will ever meet, and that really affects me and you and all of us. I mean, you're
Yeah.
not,
Yeah. Yeah.
you're not a member of parliament, for example, and you're not
Yeah.
making these decisions.
Yeah. Yeah.
When Donald Trump invaded Iran, it was America invading Iran, but your country, Israel, is deeply affected by that, obviously.
Very much. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of
So
conspiracy theories that
yeah,
Israel, it's really he's doing it at Israel's behest.
yeah, and I don't care to talk about any of that because it doesn't. What I care about is what you care about, which is
right.
Anti-Semitism is definitely on the rise. As a child, I only received like a soft form of like just you're different for this reason, we're making fun of you. But I mean, at no point did I
Right.
ever feel like my life was in danger or someone wanted to like hang me from a tree,
Right.
for example. But then as I got older, I
Right.
realized, oh, there really are people who like in 1967 they last hung a Jew from a tree in the state of Mississippi here, and like that might be ages
Oh
ago
yeah.
to some young person listening, but to me growing up in the 90s, that was like horrifyingly recent. And
That's still traumatic. You're still
yeah,
traumatized.
uh,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and the October 7th attacks are obviously like a much larger example. But
Yeah. Yeah.
what I have trouble with is understanding the division that's healthy between I am a Jew versus there's a country called Israel and a Zionist movement that is somehow supposed to be non-religious and yet religious. And so I'm curious how you feel about that. Like how because you're not
Right.
from Israel, you now live there, but
Right. Right.
you're a lot like me actually. You grew up in like a
Yeah.
pretty
Yeah. Yeah.
normal
The
Western
diaspora.
country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. We grew up in. I think there's two questions there.
Yeah,
I
please.
think the one is there seems to be a confluence of anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism, and it's a debate that's out there. There's a lot of Jews that they're choosing because this to disassociate this. The events have focused to a certain extent people's approach to Israel, the relationship with Israel. Does it strengthen their ties with Israel out of empathy and sympathy for the cause, or does it motivate them to distance themselves from Israel because we're being like
Yeah.
called out for things like you're saying that have nothing to do with us, the policies of Israel and the politics and the wars, etc., that Israel is waging. Why should they impact against us in the diaspora in America? What have we done? We didn't vote for Bibi Netanyahu to wage all his aggressive wars against Hamas and Iran and to take the Middle East apart. So why are we be blamed for this in whatever it is in university on the streets? So yeah, that's it's a good question. It's a good debate. Should Jews, to what extent are Jews complicit and identified? One of the outstanding features of Judaism is we are one big family to a certain extent,
Hmm.
and therefore, to
Absolutely.
a certain extent, you can't completely deny the connection. And have you ever benefited from the connection? You have to approach it with
Hmm.
integrity. If you've ever
Wow. Yeah.
benefited and taken pride or visited or whatever it is, or a friends or family, then you are associated to a certain extent. So do you really want to say with full integrity, I have nothing to do with Israel, even though I'm a Jew? Is that so that's one aspect of the question you raised. The other aspect is within Israel itself, like the secular religious tension that exists. I think that's what you're alluding to.
Hmm.
That
Absolutely. Yes.
that's a yeah that's an ongoing tension. That's a very delicate issue, and I think many of the major problems in Israel have resulted because of that. Even the October 7th terrorist attack can be attributed to internal division in Israel, which was largely around religious secular division. It was about the secular, the judicial reform, the
Hmm.
government. There was elections. Netanyahu got another majority, and this time it was an absolute majority about 2.5 years ago, in 23, 24. And he set upon making a judicial overhaul of the judicial system because it was felt it was too progressive, too left-leaning. It was hindering the conservative agenda, political agenda, which was largely religious, which centered, we can go into that if you want, around a lot of religious questions. The draft into the army for the ultra-Orthodox, that's a
Hmm.
major question in Israel. And the hope was that there would be a judicial reform that would allow the legislation to go through, the controversial legislation. And that caused a huge backlash straight after the elections. And that backlash resulted almost in a civil war, basically. Israel
Hmm.
was almost to the point of an insurrection. And then 7th of October came along. And that
Ah.
terrible terrorist attack, and everything was put on hold. The country came together to a certain extent,
Wow.
has been
Yeah.
together. And so I mentioned that by way of that's the religious secular
No, that's
division is very much a part of Israeli life. And how we view the state as ultra-Orthodox is a problematic relationship. There are many approaches that are taken. There are the more extreme, it's called the Sapmer, who have taken an ideological stance. They're completely anti-Zionist. They have nothing to do with Israel, nothing to do with the government. And they say we'd rather be in our own state. We have to exist here. We have to drive on the buses and on the roads, etc., and use the currency. But to whatever extent possible, we have nothing to do with the state. The more mainstream religious approach is one of, I would say, pragmatic accommodation.
Okay.
In various nuances, some people are more actually identify with the state, and some less so. Everyone's got their own view, but the mainstream generally is, I would say, pragmatic accommodation. Like everyone is Jews, they want the best for everyone, but the state fundamentally seems to be, can be viewed as a secular state.
Mm-hmm.
The Declaration of Independence did not incorporate religious language.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of fights about it at the time. And many people are of the view that for whatever reason the original Zionists had a fundamentally anti-religious agenda.
Mm-hmm.
That's the opinion of many. And then there was a question: so what do you do? How do you respond to that? Do you join them and try to bring religion into it, or do you withdraw and say it's nothing for us? And that's an ongoing tension, ongoing question. Mm-hmm. It's a theological question, it's a religious question, and it's a pragmatic question. What do you do?
Yeah.
So there's no clear answer. So we're living within that tension the whole time.
But
it works.
Yeah. No, that was a great answer, and it's interesting because I'm really thinking about, like, America's perched in what we're saying is like the early stages of a second civil war. I don't like to use that language, and I don't like to say that, but I see evidence everywhere, and I could see how a devastating attack would, technically bring us together or further divide us. I mean, I see like many parallels, and then also America, technically is secular, but clearly there's a dominating religion that, is pushing a lot of policies here. And then, getting back to my next question, I'll kind of introduce it now, is even just the word anti-Semitism confuses me, because what is a Semite? Like, what does that word even mean? And like, I've jokingly asked every Jewish friend of mine this before, but is Judaism a race, an ethnic group, a religion, all three, none of the above? What, so what is anti-Semitism?
I think the answer, I mean, primarily it's a religion that anyone, because you don't have to be born into the religion to be Jewish. You're fully fledged Jewish, like your mother. You said your mother, she converted, and she's a fully fledged Jew, and that's it. And it's an irrevocable decision. Once you're a Jew, that's it. Once you're converted. So from that perspective, it is a religion. But we also trace our lineage back to the forefathers. So it's also like, you could say it's an ethnic. And the question is also, is it a sovereignty? Is it a nation, sovereign nation state? That goes back to the Zionist question. Are non-Jewish Zionists, what's the relationship between Judaism and Zionism? There's religious Zionism and there's non-religious Zionism. So I don't know, for me as a religious person, it's not so relevant to answer the question, because we know we're Jewish and we have our obligations that they're in the Bible and in the written and the oral works, and that's what we have to do. And they're incumbent upon us from morning till evening every day of the year. So we don't philosophize too much about what is a Jew, because you are a Jew and that's it. It's pragmatic. Like, you are a Jew and you have to deal with that. You have to make the best of that.
I like that. That's actually what I've been telling myself for most of my life, is deal with this. Like, in a positive way, but like literally, I used to tell people in my 20s, I'd be like, hey, I don't need any of your flack. I don't care. Like, I don't want to talk about this. And then it became obvious to me that it doesn't matter what I want. Like, that's not what mattered in Germany or Poland or any of the horrible, in other words,
to the non-Jews, it didn't matter. They will call everyone a Jew, however much they try to distance themselves from their Judaism. And that's, people say that's what's happening now. Like, there were certain progressive elements within Judaism in America who didn't seem to be too supportive of Israel. They were seemed to be siding with the anti-Israel camp. And now they're dealing with a strong anti-Semitic backlash, and anyone who is Jewish is being tarnished with that brush of being a Jew and deemed complicit in what Israel is doing. So they sort of they're being roped into against their own will, the Jewish camp. So
And
yeah,
this is fascinating to me. I like everything you say. I like the way you say it. I like the way you think. I like your eye contact. And I'm saying this because it's important for me that I respect a person who's going to talk about a subject that very honestly like horrifies me. It is like the last thing in the world I want to talk about is war and the fundamentals of war and the fact that
yeah,
this is just one group that has been targeted repeatedly throughout history. There are so many, and they're
right, right,
and when
right,
you talked
right.
about how's the diaspora benefited you, and that really hits me in a good place. That hits me in a spot that I want to look into and really think about and get in touch with, because
Hmm.
I do see nothing but benefits. Like I my wife is Jewish. She would not have
Right,
dated me and married me if I was not Jewish. And I don't think
right,
that's my policy, but I respect it and understand it. And I know that,
right, right,
that's the
right,
way my life went, and I'm as happy as I could
right,
be. So
right, right.
I have to
I
pay my
would say,
respects. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
I'd say
what,
God brought you together. That's
yeah,
I would
yeah,
say. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And I don't,
But
I am the furthest thing from an atheist. I am
right,
definitely, but I don't know how much of the theism I believe in so much as
right.
I use the word God to be like this place marker for the unexplainable mystery of it
Hmm.
all that I do believe in, that I do. Like
Right,
I'm not
right,
a like,
right,
there's
right,
random
right,
chemicals, the universe exploded and we're here. Like I do believe that
right,
consciousness and things,
right, right,
but I'm here to ask you your questions. So I wanted to
right.
segue into your more philosophical mind. But before I do that, I think as a transition, because I think my American audience would love to hear someone with your level of education talk about it. You've been to rabbinical school. You've studied like deeply about the Torah and everything. How do they teach you to talk about Jesus as a person? Because he's Jewish.
Oh,
So I'm like, I've always wanted to ask someone with your knowledge level this. Like, when I found out Jesus was
uh,
Jewish, it blew my mind. When I was a kid, I never in a million years thought the guy everyone wears around their neck and talks about was a Jew. And then it made
right.
even less sense to me when I found out why he died. So yeah, what
Uh, okay, I wasn't expecting that
I
question,
know,
but
and I wasn't expecting to ask it. So if you're okay, though, I would love to
right.
hear your answer. Hi, everybody. This is Mike Oppenheim, the host of Coffin Talk, the show you're currently listening to, and I'm interrupting to ask you if you would mind doing me a favor and subscribing to my online publication called You Are Here on Substack. It features weekly essays. I also have fiction, and of course, there are links to the podcast and all the bonus episodes. It's completely free, and I would love your support. So please head over to mikeyop.com. That's MIKEYOPP.com and sign up today. Thank you. Bye.
Yeah. So first of all, they don't relate. The first thing I think is, from a religious perspective, he was a Jew who left his religion
Mm-hmm.
to form another religion. That's
Okay.
assuming he was a Jew. We
Okay.
don't talk about it a lot because, like I said, we're more focused on what we have to do.
Mm-hmm.
We're less, really, we're quite insular. We're in a community. We don't have that much to do. The Orthodox Jews don't have that much to do in Israel. In
Okay.
America, it's more relevant. They don't have
Yeah.
that much
Yeah.
to do with Christians. Therefore, it's not so much of a topic.
Uh-huh.
Although they appreciate a lot, there's a lot of Christian support for Israel.
Yeah.
Um, and that comes from the relationship. It's called ethical monotheism. I say they were like considered sister relations, sister religions. There is also a certain tension because you have it's less, seems to be less now. There was of mission rising a little bit of Christians trying to convert Jews
Mm-hmm.
to Christianity, which to a Jew that's apostasy. That's very unethical. That's like the worst thing. You're taking away a Jew from his religion, and therefore they're very wary. That makes religious Jews, wary of Christianity. So in my book, I write about it. In my first book,
Oh
I
wow.
write
All right.
about,
Cool.
yeah, and I could talk a little bit about that. I think. uh, Historically, I see Christianity as really evolving in two stages. The
Mm.
first stage was Jesus came along, Christ came along, and he was a Jew, and I would say he was the first Reform Jew. He
Okay.
like he thought there was problems with Judaism. That's what it seems to me,
Hmm.
which we obviously rejected. The Judaism, our mainstream Orthodox, does not accept that at all.
Hmm.
But he tried to found to say Judaism itself has been reformed, and this is a new religion. This is a new version of Judaism,
Hmm.
and that caused a lot of animosity, a lot of tension, because when the Jews rejected that. And if we get into depth, we could talk about that, what that
No, we can just keep
historically
it.
has meant.
Yeah. Yeah.
But essentially, my understanding is that 1500 years later, the time of the Renaissance and the Reformation, I think Christianity had sort of come to terms with the fact, even if not formally in its religion, had come to terms with the fact that it's now a separate religion. It's got less to do. It's less about the Jews. It's a religion for the world. It's a religion really for paganism and for atheism. That's
Hmm.
really who it's catering to. And the
Ah,
Jews are less. The Christian Jewish question is less relevant, and it's diverged. And in formally, no, it still looks at Christ is the Son of God, etc. And for us, that's a problem. That's a theological big problem.
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
like paganism also. That's why it creates a problem. But ignoring that, because I'm not the greatest scholar in this, but there are scholars who sort of view it as it's transitioned away from that theological focus, and it's more about ethical monotheism, about being the children of God and doing the will of God.
Hmm.
And seeing Judaism, this is my positive take on it, that seeing Judaism maybe as being the father, the parent religion who introduced
Yeah.
Abram,
Yeah.
introduced God, and we kept our religion, and they've been inspired by that to what's called the Noahide laws, to leading ethical lives.
Uh-huh. Wow.
So within that context, I say you can reframe Jesus as he was an inspirational figure. He wasn't claiming to be God. He wasn't claiming to reform Judaism. He
Yeah.
was inspiring the non-Jewish world to become God-fearing and
Yeah.
God-believing.
I I was a
That's
former teacher, A plus. I think that was the best answer I could have
uh
asked for. I
okay. I
really,
hope I'm gonna have to consult with my rabbinical
yeah.
friends
I mean, no, because
if I'm saying the
that
right thing.
to me that alleviates a lot of the weird concerns I've heard others address, and it actually forms like a really nice bridge to explain where we are.
Right,
And, because
right,
it's
right,
the year 2026. Like we're
right.
far
Yeah,
removed from that, and we're even further
yeah,
removed from Abraham. We'll be celebrating Pesach soon, and like all of
right.
these events are
Yeah,
historical, but they're also quasi-religious or truly religious, and that's where I think a lot of this like again, growing up in America, it took me a long time to connect the fact that Easter is the Last Supper, and like that this is like a Jewish Passover meal, that it wasn't like that
right. Yeah.
that's very
Yeah.
confusing as a child in America. I'll just put it that way.
Right,
That
right,
like
right, right. So
um,
we emphasize that as Jews, we're not really aware of that so much. Like
yeah,
it's quite intense. Being an Orthodox Jew is quite intense, and you spend all your time focusing on that, and we're not really aware or that concern. We don't have too much time. Jews don't have too much time to be concerned with what the other religions are doing because it's
yeah,
just so demanding, and anything that would detract from that would be a problem theoretically. So there is we are, Orthodox Judaism is to a certain extent isolationist. The ultra Orthodox,
yeah.
they do tend to isolate in order to preserve the purity of the religion. That's why I'm saying that the question caught me a little bit by surprise because I'm not
Yeah.
thinking about these things every day.
No, no, no,
Like
that's yeah. Um,
yeah, we're focused, but
well, and the reason it came up is I'm trying to really think about like where like what you've asked me to think about, which is like where am I in this nexus and this nebulous
right, right,
like world,
right,
and it's interesting to talk to someone who like
right.
attending school in Manchester is as British as it gets, and
Yeah,
Glasgow,
yeah.
I've been to Glasgow twice, is as
Ah,
Scottish
yeah,
as it gets, and then like Israel is as Israel as it gets. You understand the joke I'm
yeah,
trying to
yeah,
make, but so you're
yeah,
really a
yeah,
worldly man, and you've married, you've raised children,
yeah,
and
yeah.
you're still working. You're young, in my opinion,
Yeah.
and so when you mention God fearing and God and all that, of course, the subject of the show is about death. So most people I know in America fear death. They don't fear God, they fear death. And the people
Hmm.
who don't fear death usually believe in God and believe that God has something great in store for them. I know the American Jewish version of what happens when you die, but I'm more curious. Do you
Hmm.
have an intuitive feeling about happens when you die as compared to like what the religious text would tell you, or are they married to each other? Like, where do you lie in that?
You're right. You asked me that. Emotionally, do I relate to what's where I'm going to be when I'm non in this non-corporeal
Hmm.
state?
Exactly. Yeah.
Obviously, it's hard to. On the other hand, our whole life, to a certain extent, is geared as religious Jews, is very much orientated. When very often one will say, even in casual conversation, okay, I'll get reward for this, for what I did here in the next world,
Yeah.
or if I suffered some setback, okay, so that will be on the account for the next world. I'll get some points in the next world. So we are very conscious of it,
Yeah.
but it's definitely I don't to imagine it as there are stories of the great scholars and the great rabbis who did imagine it, and did live it. There's a famous story of just recalling it now, Moses Montefiore. He was a great Jewish advocate in England. He was knighted by the Queen of England. Don't know if you never heard the name Montefiore. He was the son-in-law of the Rothschilds. I'm sure you've
Oh,
heard
okay.
of.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. They were a
Yeah.
great banking firm, and
Yeah.
he was religious. The
Okay.
Rothschilds were semi-religious,
Uh-huh.
traditional, respectful, but he was very religious, and he was a great hero of the Jewish people in all the advocacies. He used to save Jews from various libels. He used to travel across the world using his influence with the Queen of England to
Wow.
save them from libels. And he was also very wealthy and very successful and a very illustrious person. And there's a story that in his mansion at home, in the background garden, there was a coffin, which is your podcast, that used to be laid out, a coffin. And I think the story goes, a rabbi once came and asked him, and he was maybe soliciting funds or something, and he showed him to the background. He said, "What's this coffin doing here? What was this coffin doing in your back garden?" And he said, "Every day I go and lie in this coffin. I have such a prestigious life, privileged life, that I feel the need, in order to ground myself ethically and to make myself more humble, to imagine what it's going to be like when I'm going to be sitting in this coffin, lying, whatever, in
Yeah.
state, and I'm going to hear people maybe around giving testimonies of my life, and talking about me in the past tense, and I try to imagine that because that was for him a very healthy religious or ethical exercise. So I'm saying there is a lot of consciousness. Am I
Yeah.
on that level? I don't know. I do occasionally think of that story and try to imagine. I guess we go chronologically. First of all, what are they going to say about me?
Uh-huh.
How are they going to eulogize me? And I guess that's a protection. I have because I'm quite think conceptually what
Uh-huh.
the world to come is. So that's more been my focus, and I've written about
That's
it in the
cool.
book.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
I think it depends. The conclusion I reached is why some people say, for example, when people talk about the injustice of the world,
Uh-huh.
a lot of it, like God can't be good because look at all the suffering that comes in the world. And we respond, yes, but there's a world to come where everything will be justified. And the atheists tend to say that's a cop out. Don't tell
Uh-huh.
me about the world to come. That's what about what's going on here? This
They
child
do
in
say
Africa
that.
suffering
Yeah.
malnutrition.
Yeah.
You're not deal with that.
Yeah.
And yet we do believe as religious people that very much is the ultimate and the only answer one can really give. The suffering in this world will somehow be redeemed and alleviated and have meaning, and everything one does will be accounted for in the world to come. And I say it's two world views. If we view this world as an end, as a physical end, as an absolute entity, then it's far harder for us to relate to the world to come because it is a completely new dimension.
Mhm.
If, however, we take the view of this world that is really a manifestation of God, and the physical laws are basically here to enable us to function maybe as humans, as better people, to serve God. So it's not an end, it's a means. Based on that, the world to come is not such a new dimension. It's a development maybe into to the new world. If you're focused less on the body, the material, but more on the spiritual, then you're already half living in that dimension in the world to come. So you're already there, therefore becomes less challenging to imagine it and project it.
Yeah.
But that's a lot of lifetime's work to project that.
Yeah.
We could get more philosophically into it.
No, no,
That was just the intro.
that is a wonderful intro, and also I would like and hope for people to actually purchase your books and read them and get the full,
Okay,
well
you're very
thought out.
generous. I'm not sure if I'm saying good answers,
Um,
but you're very
no, no,
generous
no,
with your
no, no, no.
responses.
Trust me, you are. You're making perfect sense to me, and that's all that matters to me.
Okay,
It's my show.
right.
I want to have a
Okay, yeah,
great
yeah,
intellectual conversation. What I
right,
like,
yeah, yeah,
because I can explain to you. I mean, I'm good at this. I can actually explain what I like about you. You have researched and done a lot of thinking and work, and you have a passion for what you do, but you're not
mhm,
unwilling to consider alternatives nor to like investigate them and think them through. And
right,
that's
right,
all I
right,
ask of
right,
any religious person is just
right, yeah,
please
yeah, yeah,
don't, like, from the moment
right,
you're 6, just have your head in the sand and just say this is what a book
right,
told me. And that's really all I care
yeah,
about. I would
right,
like
right,
the world I would like the world to either completely ban all religions or to respect all religions. Like I said, it's not a real like
right,
it's unfair the way, like in America. I'll give you an example. Like here we belittle certain religions and then
hmm,
say other ones are valid. I think that's
right, right, right.
extreme
I
and
mean,
weird, and
right. I mean, I would have to say, as Judaism, we believe for us, this
yeah,
is the absolute truth, and
yeah,
and this is what we have to do. And any Jew who would consider another religion, that would not be appropriate for another Jew. That
yeah,
we do take that view. Um, I have a view of religion itself. I'm not going to be able to develop it now. That a large focus of it, and particularly Judaism, but everything is really ethically orientated. Is really to
yes,
make
yes,
man the
yeah,
best he can be, and
yeah.
even all the rituals, and that doesn't mean we can dispense in any way with the all the ritualistic aspects of Judaism, of religion, but they have a goal, to my mind, the way I've understood it to a certain extent, is to refine man and to bring man to be better person as people.
I I
Ultimately, that is the ultimate goal of it.
I
Yeah,
completely agree. And one of the most intelligent friends I have is very religious. And a lot of people say, how can he be that smart and be religious? And his answer has
right.
always been and always will be, I need religion. I would not wake up on time for work. I would not like meet my
Ah, right.
my
Yeah,
duties.
yeah,
I would
yeah,
I
yeah,
would
yeah,
like be
yeah.
distracted
Right,
by the
right,
materialism and the world
right,
around me,
right,
and I
right,
wouldn't have half my
right.
head in, and just one more like tag on something you said. When you said the word somehow. You said like somehow this is going to be explained, the suffering, and I agree with that. But I think
Right,
that's
right.
actually why atheists hate religious people is the word somehow seems to terrify them. And I'm not saying this to all atheists who are listening right now. I'm saying,
Right, right, right.
in my opinion,
So,
the word
so,
somehow is just too scary for a lot of people.
right, right, right. So I alluded, I think, to what the answer is because it's a different viewpoint. And in my book, I make that point that the atheist view, that everything is grounded. Everything, I try to reduce things to two simple concepts. I don't know if I'll get to it here, but everything is grounded within, is can be understood on that world view. The atheist world view is, yeah, this is the end. This is the world. The material world is what we see. The all the physical laws are like the immutable laws of the universe. And therefore, when you tell me something's going to happen in the world to come, that is a major somehow. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't relate to me. Whereas a religious person, we view the view as the world as the creation of God. It's a means as opposed to an end.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, it's already part of the next world. Therefore, that somehow is got far greater relevance to us. And therefore, that's, yeah, we are talking different languages, and it's almost impossible to convey that somehow of a different dimension to someone who believes, yeah, this it's a completely other world, yeah.
Well,
But so I try to rationalize and explain to them, why are you, why where's that worldview coming from, and in my opinion, it leads to the basis of an ethical life and world. These worldviews,
yeah,
that's where it's really rooted in. If you believe in God as a creator, that's where the ethical constitution of man comes from, in my opinion. If you don't believe the creator, then ethics is it becomes more challenging.
yeah,
And to say that man is constitutionally ethical becomes more abstract and
yeah.
more vague.
Yeah. And I mean, yeah, if we
Right.
could, Daniel, I could talk to you for hours about this. I do have to wrap things up, but I did want to end
Sure.
on what I consider to be a very pleasant note, which is So it's not going to sound pleasant at first, but trust me, it is. My mother-in-law,
Everything you say is
yeah,
pleasant. Everything you say is pleasant.
my
You have a great
mother-in-law
smile. So
was a practicing Orthodox Jew in America.
who?
My
Who?
mother-in-law, my wife's
Ah,
mother,
your mother-in-law, yeah.
and she passed
Wow.
away last October. It was very sudden and very sad. But
Okay.
in her passing, the one thing I learned that I had never gotten to experience is that Orthodox Jews in general, have by far the greatest set of rules for how to grieve. It's like it blew my
Yeah,
mind.
yeah,
It's so
yeah, yeah, yeah.
helpful. I mean, I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it. Like I've never seen such a healthy, careful,
Mhm.
deliberate response to how awful it is to lose someone. So I was just
Right.
curious if you could like, somewhat succinctly kind of just tell our audience like either like whatever your favorite part of that is, however you'd like to end. And that's how I'd like to
Would you
end
say my
the
favorite part? Did you say my favorite part?
yeah, your favorite part
Yeah.
about like yeah, like how
Uh,
because it is
of
the most
dying. We're talking
beautiful
about
thing.
dying.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, 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 well, death itself. Well, the first part, I guess, is
Yeah.
when a person is dying, one has to the final act of life is generally to contrition, to say the what's called the vidui prayer, to make an accounting, to apologize, so to speak. I can't remember the word
Probably a
for
tone.
one's life,
Yeah.
to repent,
Okay.
repentance, the
Repent. Yeah.
penitential prayer, and also to say, to explain, to reassert God's oneness, the Shema, which we say every day. So the time of death, that is very important because we're affirming God's oneness and we believe in it even through the distress and perhaps the pain of death. That is that's the first part, and that's being realistic and taking health and not running away from what it is. After that, burial is extremely important. It's considered a very compassionate duty to ensure that the burial comes quickly and efficiently, but extremely dignified as well. It's considered one of the greatest acts of kindness that one can do to ensure a respectful, dignified burial and eulogy for the past, for the one who's passed away, and the time, the immediate family, at the time of death, from the time of death till burial, they actually have no religious obligations. They're not even allowed to perform any religious obligations because they have to be so focused on ensuring this burial process. It takes place from beginning to end. After that, they have the what's called the Shiva, the 7 days of intense mourning, where they generally all the immediate offspring, progeny of the deceased, congregate generally in the house of the deceased if that's possible, and they sit there for 7 days. They don't go to work, they don't do anything. They have prayers 3 times a day, in which they lead the prayers. And I'll just make one observation that the Avel, the actual one mourning, acquires a very central role from the time in Jewish liturgy and in religious practice, communal practice. He becomes a focal figure. He is the one that leads the prayers for throughout the year. Essentially, he's the one. And my interpretation of that is, it's considered, it's explained in that he's doing it for the benefit of the passing soul. By him, by us doing extra good acts, we're somehow affecting positively the soul of the person who's passed. By doing it on his behalf and showing that we respect him, that actually inures to his benefit. But I also view it that actually the person themselves, when a person experiences death on a close level, it's a very sobering experience, and it brings a person to a senses. It gives a person a lot of context and a sense of proportion about life, and it focuses a person. And it's really spiritually, tragically, but that's the way it is. It's a healthy thing. It makes a person very often a better. You don't worry about everything else; doesn't matter. And
Yeah.
this fight with this person, etc., doesn't matter. And that's why I think they're put in the forefront of the religious services, because there's someone who understands what prayer is about, who understands what life is about in the immediate aftermath of death. Therefore, they are considered like a more holy person. They achieve a higher level, in my opinion. And just finally, what happens is
Yeah.
this. For a parent, this continues for a year essentially, which you're focused on the passing. Generally, you're not meant to engage in too much joyous events, etc. You don't participate in weddings. You don't go to weddings. even minimize socializing. Those who take it to the letter of the law to its fullest. You don't socialize. You don't buy new clothes. You don't go on fancy holidays. You're generally respectfully mournful, especially for a parent, throughout the year. After the year, it does diminish gradually, but after the year, generally, that's when the period of mourning officially ends. After that, every year on the anniversary, again, you revisit. You maybe go to the grave. You say the Kaddish, the prayer, sanctification, etc. That's maybe in a nutshell.
No, no, that was great. And thank you again, because that it just, as you said it, I mean, I was just like almost tearing up because it was so
Oh,
beautiful. Everything you said was so beautiful. We're still in the first
you're
year,
very
but
generous. You're very generous.
well, I don't
We
know.
should
I
talk
can't.
every week. I'll pay you to be my therapist. Like,
I actually I joke with friends. I tell them I'd love to just be a listener, a professional listener. I like
wow,
listening to
yeah, you are.
people
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay,
and
send me the bill. Send me the
yeah.
bill.
So no, you're doing me a favor. You're coming on my show, and I get to
No,
advertise you
no,
to the
you're
world.
making
So
me feel so great. I never had so
um,
many compliments in half an hour. I don't know how long.
well, I mean, if you want to, I don't shy away from these kind of conversations, but honestly, all of us are beautiful, every human, and the way we touch each other and the way we come in, and that's why this podcast, I want to quit every single week because it's one more thing to do. You know, it's like what do I need to go out of my way?
Right,
I'm not
right,
trying to
yeah,
make
yeah,
money off of this. I'm not trying to like,
right, right.
but
Yeah,
the
yeah.
way I'm going to feel the rest of the day after meeting you and talking to you is why I'm doing it.
No,
It's really
I hope. Okay, yeah,
yeah, because I mean with maybe two exceptions in 270 something interviews, I've walked away with a smile on my face and I felt more connected
great, great,
to every human on earth because I've interviewed
right,
and there's especially with like atheists who I've, you know, made different remarks about in this episode. Some of my closest best friends are atheists and they're some of the nicest best people I know. So to me
right,
it does
right,
not
right,
preclude you from
right,
ethical
right,
you know, it
right,
precludes you
right,
from the monotheism part but not the ethical part. So
right.
we
I've
all have
argued
our
in the
path.
book. I'll just mention. I
Yeah.
argued in the book that atheists are really theists
Yeah.
and professing to be atheists.
Yeah.
That they really
Uh,
do believe in God and they believe in a good God. They just try to claim that they don't believe in any God. That would be a philosophical discussion, but
yeah.
that's my theory on atheists.
Well, Daniel, if you're ever coming
Right,
stateside, I would love to meet you in
right.
person. And
Yeah,
I would
sure. And if
actually,
you come to Israel, I don't know. Have you been to Israel recently?
I have never been to Israel. I was supposed to
You've
go when
never been to?
I was supposed to go when I was 27 for the birthright trip. You know, the famous,
Yeah,
like,
sure, sure,
and
sure.
a
Right.
car hit me on my bicycle, and I was in a wheelchair, and I couldn't go. And
Oh, wow.
this is
Wow.
nothing against Judaism, but it is something against the Birthright Organization. I appealed for an extension for a year, and they said absolutely not. They said sorry,
Oh,
it's
wow.
only until you're 27. And I was like, I was hit by a car. Come on, but again, that was
Yeah,
just like a
wow.
funny
I'm a
incident.
lawyer. I'll write them. I'm a lawyer. I'll write them a letter for you.
Well, now I'm an
It's
old
ridiculous.
44-year-old. I don't want to be on a
Oh, yeah,
bicycle enough.
no. So you get it with interest. It's been accruing interest since then.
Actually, you know what? I have time. I want to ask one more question. I think it's relevant. A lot of people fear going to Israel. They fear that at any minute you're going to be under attack. It's going to be
Right,
no flights
right,
out. You know, like I mean,
right.
the attack at the concert is a great example. How do you deal with all of that just in your own internal private life? You have children, you have a wife. Like, how do you deal with that?
Right. So first of all, I guess we're trained into it. When I first moved to Israel, it was like 30 years ago. We had the Iraq, the Gulf War, and
Hmm.
that was my first experience of it. We had sirens, and there was a lot of rumors that Saddam Hussein had chemical warfare,
Yeah, I
missiles
remember
with
that.
chemical warheads, and that was frightening. I remember the first siren that went off, and nobody knew what was happening, and it was quite traumatic. After that, we got used to it. We maybe got spoiled. There's incredible Israeli technology that shoots down the missiles as they're running, and that's just being improved the whole time. So to a certain extent, we do believe, we believe in God is protecting us, and God has given the wisdom to the engineers to create incredible defense technology. Israel is incredibly resilient. The Jewish people, I think, and Israel are incredibly resilient, and they found a way to keep a state running in the middle of a war. It's like quite incredible. It's mind-boggling. How does that happen? And even it seems to be the economy itself, despite all the detractors of Netanyahu, has itself almost strengthened over the last few years, despite the incredible trauma and that Israel's been going through. And it's been on many individual levels. People have gone through personal traumas, but overall the country seems to be coping pretty well. There are sirens like a few times a day. We had one this morning. I'm not going to say what I do. You're meant to run to the shelter. I don't always do that, but I'm not going to make that publicly known. But you get used to it. You pray to God. You hope you're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And statistically, like everyone says, so far it's one in a few million that someone's actually going to get hurt.
Yeah.
So most people come to Israel are unscathed, and it's more dangerous maybe to walk across the road in Manhattan into driving there than touring in Israel. Most people, nothing happens to them. There are maybe like a very small percentage. Yeah, unfortunately, tragically, things do happen, but I don't think that's a reason to try and disrupt the whole of life, which I think what terrorism tries to do, tries to disrupt the national life.
Yeah.
And Israel, like I said, is being successful, and maybe it's the Jewish ethic. Just we got to do what we got to do, and in that sense of humor, maybe this is life, this is it. Get used to it, and if it's not rain, it's either raining missiles or it's raining rain.
Thank you so much, Daniel. You've been a wonderful guest, and I'm really, really excited that I got to talk to you. It is not every day that someone like me gets to talk to someone as wise and also.
I'm not particularly wise or particularly anything, but I happen to be at the end of a microphone, whatever. And,
all right, well, let's just say humble. How about that? We'll throw that one out. Thank you again, Daniel Bookman. There will be links for how to find your books and everything on the actual episode notes, so you will not have to go any further than on your app right now, or if you're on YouTube, just look in the description. And thank you again, and we will see you soon.